So in this episode, I'm going to talk about reinvention. I'm going to talk about personal reinvention. I'm going to talk about why a lot of us are reach a point in midlife where we feel kind of dissatisfied, disconnected, especially men, by the way. Did you know that the midlife crisis is something that's more common for men than women? So I'm going to talk about why that is. And I'm going to talk about what to do if you feel disconnected or you feel like maybe you missed a chance to pursue a deeper purpose, if you feel like your life passed you by and you're in midlife now and part of you is worrying, maybe it's too late for me, maybe I missed the chance to do what I really came here to do because I've spent my life feeling drawn to deeper purpose. And, I'm grateful for all the things that I achieved and accomplished throughout my life. But I kind of went through a lot of my life feeling like I'm here for more. And, it's sort of like, I don't know if I want to admit that because I don't want to be ungrateful for what I've experienced because I've done a lot of incredible things in the world. And maybe that's my purpose. And maybe that's what I was here for. But it's like at the same time, a little bit like, has me wondering, is that really all there is? So if that's something you're navigating in any way, I'm going to attempt to speak to that in today's episode. This is episode 11 of my new show, which is called The Design Self. The Design Self is a show that invites you to engage in the most important design project of your life, which is yourself. Who are you? Who do you want to become next? Because I believe that as long as we're alive, as long as we're breathing and we have blood flowing through our veins, we have the opportunity to decide who we want to be next. A lot of the time we reach midlife and we kind of think, I guess this is it for me. By midlife, a lot of us, most of us you've kind of experienced all the main things that there are to experience in life, right? You've had relationships, you've had career success, hopefully you've traveled. And by I'm 49, by 40, 50, 60, most of us have kind of experienced all of it. It doesn't mean that we've accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish, but we've sort of experienced basically most of what life has to offer, right? And so what happens is it leads a lot of us to feel kind of disenchanted. Like, well, I did everything. I climbed the ladder. I reached this position that I really thought once I got to that position, I was going to feel that deeper fulfillment. And the truth is we're all longing for deeper fulfillment. And one of the things I'll talk a lot about is Carl Jung. So Carl Jung is a Swiss psychoanalyst from the early 1900s. Carl Jung he was a student of Sigmund Freud, and Carl Jung sort of diverged from Sigmund Freud. And I'll go more into that another time. But Carl Jung came up with a model for understanding the human psyche that I think is one of the most powerful models anyone has ever developed. And so I'm going to be drawing on the work of Carl Jung. I'm going to be sort of adapting Carl Jung's work to, make it more palatable, I think. Nothing wrong with Carl Jung, brilliant, and his writings are absolutely brilliant. But, I think it's worth, we should take I believe this is something we should do, is take the people that we admire and the people that we've learned from and take their ideas and share them in our own unique way, not trying to steal them, giving them credit, but saying sort of, this is my spin on Carl Jung. This is what I've understood. This is how it's helped me on my own life journey. And so one of the most important things that Carl Jung led us to was something you've probably heard about if you've ever taken a yoga class or done a breath work or done a self-development event, is the concept of shadow. If you heard about shadow or people talking about shadow work. So Carl Jung was the guy who came up with the idea of shadow. And what is shadow? So shadow is the place within our psyche where we don't go, basically. So we've all got things that we don't like to think about. We've all got, maybe it's something that went wrong earlier in your life that you have regrets about. And so we push it away. We try not to think about it because we're afraid that once I start thinking about that, I'm going to spiral into a black hole that maybe I'm never going to come out of again. And that's what Carl Jung referred to as shadow. Shadow is every thought inside of you that you're afraid to think. shadow also shows up in the form of aspects of your personality that maybe you don't express because maybe throughout your life you were led to believe that certain aspects of yourself are unacceptable or not to be shown, like that old adage, children should be seen and not heard. What a horrible thing, right? To become a prevalent norm. But that's, that's society. That's how we've kind of lived, is with this sort of like oppression, being led to believe that parts of ourselves aren't acceptable. Anyway, I digress. But that's one of the most important concepts from Carl Jung's teachings, is the idea of the shadow. And so we all have a shadow, was the other thing Carl Jung talked about. And the path to integration, according to Carl Jung, and something that, if you've experienced this, you'll realize, yes, he was right about this, and I've experienced it. The path to what Carl Jung called integration, because all of Carl Jung's work was about becoming integrated, becoming an integrated person, similar to Maslow, Abraham Maslow, right? So Carl Jung's work was all about becoming integrated, becoming a whole human being. And so how do you do that? You have to integrate your shadow. You have to go into the parts of yourself that you've avoided. You have to be willing to sit with yourself. Maybe you have to go into the woods. Maybe you have to take a break from your career, which is something I did over the last couple of years, was really take a break, take a step back, go into the woods, sit in meditation, spend time with yourself, and allow yourself to reflect on aspects of your life that maybe you've never gone deeply into. Because here's what's going to happen when you die. And sorry to go there, but here's what's going to happen when you die. When you're on your deathbed, and this has been documented, that when you're on your deathbed, you're going to go back through your life. You're going to have that moment as you die. And again, sorry to go here, but you're going to have that moment where you go back through your life and you're going to reflect on all the major things that happened to you, all the major things that shaped you throughout your life. And you're going to deduce meaning from them. You're going to understand something about your life purpose. You're going to understand why, I lost my dad when I was a very young kid, and I went through some other challenging things, and those shaped me. And so the types of things like that, your mind is going to go there when you die, because you don't have a choice anymore. You can't avoid it anymore. And it's going to make sense. You're going to, oh, this is why that happened. And this is what, again, a lot of people have talked about, how in those final moments, it's like a life review, and suddenly you become enlightened and it makes sense, and then you die. So what I want to invite you to do is not have to wait until you're about to die to do a life review, because the way that you design yourself, and that's what the design self is all about, the invitation to design yourself. Decide who you want to be next. And the way that you get empowered in that way is not to just decide who you want to be and like look in the mirror and say positive affirmations. It's to excavate your shadow, because what is in your shadow is really, so one of the other things Carl Jung talked about is that Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So what did he mean by that? He meant that what is in your unconscious, and your unconscious is your shadow, your unconscious drives you. And so most of us go through, this is crazy, it took me a long time to realize this, but most of us, we go through life suppressing our shadow. We go through life trying to push away what's buried in our shadow. And we build careers like I did to try and keep our shadow at bay. So let's say, for example, that what's in my shadow is I'm useless and incompetent and I'm never going to be valuable to the world. And I'm afraid to go to that part of myself, to those beliefs inside of me. And so what I'm going to do, what I kind of did, was build a career designed to make me feel valuable and important. And what I didn't realize, what we don't realize is that the thing that's driving our career is the desire to avoid what's in our shadow. And we build a whole life around that. And this is why a lot of us reach midlife and feel sort of dissatisfied, feel like, I feel like there's something more for me, but I never quite, what is it? And we don't quite have words for it, and not enough people are talking about it. And that's why I'm here talking about it. Because what's happening is what is in your shadow has been driving you throughout your life. And I'll give you one other thing from Carl Jung. So Carl Jung talks about the persona. Okay, this is the last thing I'll leave you with before the end of this episode. So what is the persona? So Carl Jung said that the persona is the face that we show the world, the face that we use to help us navigate the world. It's how we show up in the world. You know, the face that you bring to work, the face that you bring to the meeting that you have with the executive committee. That's not you. It's your persona. And our persona, again, is basically like a vehicle that we drive in to find our way through this crazy world. So there's two, this is super important. This is the last thing I'm going to leave you with, is that there's two ways that our persona can show up. Number one is if you haven't integrated your shadow, if you have things in your shadow that you haven't dealt with, that you're still pushing away, your persona is a vehicle, and this is foundational to Carl Jung's teachings, that your persona in that case is a vehicle for keeping your shadow suppressed. So the person you show up as in the world is basically a vehicle to keep your authentic self pushed away. And that's why a lot of us feel dissatisfied, because we reach midlife and we don't have words for it. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is offer words for an experience that a lot of people have, which is you reach midlife, you feel disconnected, you feel dissatisfied. What is happening for a lot of people is that your shadow is suppressed, and the version of you that is showing up in the world, your persona, is a persona that is based on suppressing your shadow. Hopefully that makes sense. So how do you become integrated? How do you design yourself? How do you become free and liberated? Well, again, you have to integrate your shadow. You have to go into those parts of yourself, find healing, find resolve. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And that's one of the things I'll be talking about in this show. But the important thing to know is when you integrate your shadow, when you do that deeper healing, what happens is then your persona stops being a vehicle for suppressing your shadow, and you can start to express your authentic self with your persona, with the person you show up as in the world. And so that's what Carl Jung meant when he talked about integration, is learning to show up in the world as your persona in a way that is a reflection of who you really are at a deeper level. And that's when you find freedom. That's when you find liberation. That's when you find your true life purpose, when who you start showing up as is a reflection of who you are at a deeper level. So thanks for watching. Thanks for watching episode 11 of The Designed Self. And I'm Elliot Lemberger. I'm going to be sharing a new episode every day as I kind of figure out like what this show is all about and what I'm meant to be talking about here. And, you know, how to communicate these concepts that I've spent my life thinking about and reflecting even more deeply on over the last couple of years. So would love to hear from you if this connected with you, you know, if you're a fan of Carl Jung, or if you're not, and this helped you understand Carl Jung's teachings better. You know, if anything here struck a chord or was insightful to you, please let me know, because that's really helpful to me. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching this episode. I'll be here every day. I'm doing this every day for 30 days to launch the show and see where this wants to lead me. This is an expression of my own repressed shadow, which throughout my life said, you're not valuable. What you have to say isn't interesting and it's not important. And so I'm in the process of healing my own shadow. That's what this looks like. And so I would love to hear from you. So please feel free to say hi, and I'll see you tomorrow.